Welcome to the channel. This is going to be my thoughts on episode 7, the latest episode to have dropped on the series Silo that's into second season. And it's a good episode in that some more questions are getting answered, so they're pushing the story. Um, yeah, this is a good show. I like it a lot. The performances, no complaints. Um, the story is good and it's building and building and building. This episode 7 is we see some more, get more information, see more desperation on the part of Bernard and IT, and also I guess in Jules. Um, but yeah, we're seeing how things are escalating in Silo 18, and the hope is that they don't escalate to what happened in Silo 17, where everybody died. So, anyways, in this episode, there's a bit more in Silo 17 of the story in Silo 17, although a lot of it is visual. Nothing occurs. So let's go over it. Episode 7, you could divide it between Silo 18, Silo 17. There's a single story going on in Silo 17, which is between Jules and Solo. But in 18, you have Bernard, and then you have the people down in Mechanical, and then sort of a sub story is the sheriff's department, who are from the top but are stuck down with all the rest of the people. So this is mostly about Bernard this time around. So we saw at the end of the previous episode that Bernard was making Lucas his shadow. So what they do, if you're not aware, is because there's no really formal schooling for anything other than small children, if somebody's doing a job, they have somebody what they call a shadow. It's basically an apprentice to follow them around and the um, learn the trade by watching. And we've seen that in that Jules had her own shadow in Mechanical, and when the bomber has to get the bullet taken out, it's a shadow. He gets a shadow of a doctor, which doesn't impress him much. But I could even say that Jules was Walker's shadow at one point. But anyways, so that is where we ended up, and we see that Bernard takes Lucas into IT. The door that he leads him through is identical to the one which Solo, sorry, I keep confusing there, it's similar, but it's identical to the door and the keypad to the door that Solo is hiding behind when we first see him. We see him as a pair of eyes. So, anyways, uh, one of the things that confused me a little bit is that when Lucas is taken in, there's like an AI thing there because they ask, or Bernard tells Lucas to introduce himself and what his function is. He basically says that out loud, and then the system seems to accept him. So that is a little confusing about where they are technologically in the world, in our world or whatever. But yeah, it's a little strange thing that just one of the things that I wonder about, because later in the shot between or in the conversation between Bernard and Lucas, Bernard says that the silo was built 352 years ago. So you're telling me 352 years ago they had AI, and like all the tech that they have is not necessarily new. It's left over from when the silo originally was created and everybody was put into it. So anything that they have has to have been around 352 years ago. Well, this is kind of an inconsistency that confuses me a bit, because everything else is pretty standard for our time frame or around our time frame. So it makes sense that in 352 years it would still be around because it's every only thing that they have, and they've been repairing the shit out of it. But unless there's some development going on someplace off camera, why would they suddenly have an AI engine to the computer system in IT? And why? Sorry, I have a bit of a cold. And why do they have tablets like that? Nobody, you don't see them anyplace else other than AI. So that would have to mean either IT is getting new tech from someplace, or that tech was available 352 years ago, which I question. But anyways, maybe when you find out what is causing the or what's killing the people that leave to clean, maybe that'll help sustain it or figure it out somewhat. Anyways, we also see while Bernard is, sort of taking Lucas through, he basically says to Lucas that you'll stay here while you study the legacy. That's what they call when they take Lucas into the vault. It's got all this, all the relics that Luke or stuff that Lucas always has considered relics, but they got books and books and books. And then, excuse me, Bernard says that there's 20 times this all in this tablet thing. It's been digitized, which is something they would understand. But they say there's quarters in here and you can live here while you are reading through the legacy. So, okay, that also ties into Solo, because Solo is able to live when he's got himself locked inside the vault. There's living quarters here, so there must be food and a means of cooking and that kind of stuff. So, okay, that makes sense. So during the conversation between Bernard and Lucas, and some of this is revealed in separate scenes, but I'm kind of tying them together to keep the storyline between the two of them sort of a coherent timeline or whatever. But Lucas and Bernard talking is Bernard is trying to reassemble the hard drive because he thinks there's something on it that he doesn't know that he needs to know. Again, I'll go back to what I've said previously. Is his former shadow, the judge, never told why she quit, and always kind of indicated there was something that she wasn't telling Bernard. So again, I have an idea what it might be since I've read the books, but at this point it seems that Bernard doesn't know what's going on, which again kind of ties into the books. They know a lot, but not everything. An IT head of IT. But Bernard thinks it's desperately important that he knows this information that potentially is in the hard drive, because Salvador Quinn potentially put it there. But Lucas figures out that this code that he's chasing is maybe not numeric, it's letters, and he's going to need a book. So says he's going to need a really old book. He thinks that Salvador Quinn wanted people to understand his code, but only the right people. So the book would be something that's not in wide circulation, like the Pact. And Bernard hands him a copy of The Wizard of Oz, which was something he received from the judge that he killed. And that might explain why she knew something that Bernard didn't. Maybe she was detected the code. Maybe she was able to find out something on her own. So that's where we leave Lucas, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to understand what the code is to actually get, trying to get the information off the hard drive. And okay, so also going on in Silo 18, we have Lucas and Shirley, and not Lucas, but Knox and Shirley and Walker, and then the rest of the people. Not Knox goes down and talks to his guy in assembly, and he gives him a package, which I thought was a bomb, but it turned out to be a rocket. It fires up the inside of the silo and tells everyone that, or dumps out about a bunch of messages that are basically IT lies to you. What happened to Jules? What happened to the judge? Is IT hiding? Yada yada yada. So again, this is pushing towards um, a panic or a major distrust in um, the people to who's in charge, which would be Bernard, because he's actually the mayor of the silo when he killed the previous mayor. Oh, great. There's a trend, if anything. Um, so, uh, yeah, so you're seeing some of the raiders pick up these slips of paper, and you can see that it's starting to wear on them. And then later on, Bernard addresses the sheriff's department because after the rocket was launched, basically um, Shirley shuts off the power, so everything goes dark except for IT, and people are seeing that IT has power until Bernard runs back in and shuts all the lights off. So when Bernard addresses all the sheriffs, you can see them looking at each other when he's trying to say that, it was Knox that left the power on partly because he controls where it goes, and he left it on to sow dissension, which is being sowed because the sheriff's department are at the point that they don't believe his bullshit anymore. Um, anyways, they find out too, the sheriff's department down in the deep find out that from interrogating a guy to try to figure out who the spy is, um, but there's a hit out on Shirley and Lucas, so the sheriffs go round them up and take them back to the sheriff's office for safety's sake. Anyways, um, basically, they're not sure. I mean, the sheriffs are in a difficult position down there because they are trying to get to the truth, but they told Bernard last episode that basically go screw himself. Um, so they're kind of moving forward on their own path, caught between the two groups. There is a time when Sims and his wife are talking, and his son has a Pez dispenser, and I've seen the Pez dispenser a couple of times. Bernard's been holding it. It's considered a relic. I still don't know. I don't remember it from the book. I have no idea what this Pez dispenser is supposed to be. Maybe it'll turn out to be the key to the book. I'm not sure. But I just thought it was kind of funny that this kid has a Pez dispenser and it's considered a important relic. Um, so that's more or less it. We see the main themes from Silo 18 is the continuing escalation by Mechanical, mainly because they're trying to get ahead of them being blamed for everything. The rift between Bernard and virtually everybody. Sims doesn't trust him anymore because he was very loyal, but when he got shunted aside, he lost that loyalty. Um, we have Bernard working with Lucas. Now Lucas seems to be the only person working with him because he's just curious and doesn't want to go back to the mines. But Bernard's doing everything he can to try to maintain power, maintain control, and it's rapidly leaking through his fingers. And we do see at the end of the episode that Walker makes a mistake of hooking up a camera um, in her office, and Bernard sees it, and then he looks at some footage of Walker and the head of supply when they were in jail up in the top part, and sees them holding hands, and you can tell from this sort of smile on his face that he figures he's got something that he can use. He did go visit the head of supply, and she told him that she wanted to know what happened to her friends, and he was she thought she had him in saying, you came to me to find out how much gunpowder they actually have. And Bernard just turned around and walked when she made some demands. So I think she and Walker are going to be in trouble. That again is not in the book, but then this whole relationship it wasn't in the book. Again, like I said, Walker was a man in the books, so he didn't have any real relationship with Supply other than some kind of favor got Jules to get the good tape as opposed to the bad tape. So we'll have to see where that goes. Then the final part of the episode was all in Silo 17. Basically, Jules and Solo are there. Jules again knows what potentially is going to happen in 18 unless she gets back there, so she's really pushing to get her suit done. But when she passed out, Solo took her suit and won't give it back until she fixes the pump. They get into an argument about fixing the pump, and she says, "You know what? You seem to know everything. You can go fix it." But Solo basically breaks down, almost crying, that he's a fuck up and he can't do anything right, and if he tries to fix it, it'll only go bad. Jules said that she'll come back, but he gives a very compelling list of why he can't let her go without fixing it. To assuming she'll come back, because he says you could die there, your suit could fail. Yeah, possible. Two, they won't let you in. Possible. Two, if they let you in, they're going to kill you. Again, possible. So there's a whole list of which she eventually agrees to, and after he starts almost crying, she says she will fix it. So she gets a power washer to use as an air pump. Well, it's a good idea. Again, in this show, they show that she's very competent, that she's smart, that she's clever, she knows what she's doing. A lot of shows where they have a girl boss or a main girl character, they just tell you that they're super wonderful, terrific, and never show it. So you don't know, you have to accept the writer's word for it, which never a lot of people don't like. Here you see that Jules knows her shit. She's a genius when it comes to building and fixing things, which is why she works so well down in down in mechanical. So she's making an underwater pump out of a power washer. So just before she goes down, Solo has made her a pair of diving boots by putting some weights into some work boots, and also made her a set of goggles so she can see underwater, which is good. Um, But before Jules goes down, he describes to her the bends. So he said he got into, after reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he got into underwater stuff, and he gives her a whole thing on bends, and she just thinks he's full of shit. Doesn't understand it, doesn't trust it, but he does tell her what could happen and how she can prevent it and things like that. So, anyways, Jules goes down and fixes the pump because she's good at what she does. Um, so they had it arranged that they're using a little bell up top and a rope, and if Jules needs something or some action to occur, she will um, she will get pull on the rope. So she takes her waterproof cable that she's found down, connects it to the pump, pulls on the rope, which is a signal to Solo to connect that cable to IT's cable, so they'll have proper power because everything's offline pretty much in the Silo 17. And sure enough, the pump comes and starts chugging away. So the next thing was supposed to be that Jules would, once she saw the pump was working, she was supposed to pull on the rope again, and Solo was supposed to connect her rope to a winch, and he would winch her up, but not too fast because they were going to avoid the bends. Anyways, her air supply suddenly disappears. She's pulling frantically on the rope, and there is nothing, no response or whatever. So she has to start going up, dumps boots, starts going up, forget about the bends, swimming, and when she gets to the top, there is no sign of Solo whatsoever. However, the power washer's been knocked over, and you can see the picture here, and there's blood on it. So if you remember back to the very first episode, Jules was trying to use a rope to swing back and forth to bridge a gap that had been blown between IT and the stairs. And she was hoping that she would use like momentum going back and forth and then eventually let go of the rope at a certain point when she was securely over the platform that remained. But when she was doing that, suddenly she drops into the water, and when she got to back to where the rope that where she thought maybe the rope just came undone, but when she gets up there, she finds what she sees and shows us is somebody cut the rope. So at that point, it was like, is Jules and Solo the only ones in Silo 17? Up to this point, they were both Solo and Jules were operating under the assumption that it's only them. Now, Jules or Solo potentially could have run into other people because he's locked away. There was enough bodies there where the people had been coming to try to get into IT, and he's turned them away, which they eventually die. But there could be somebody else in the silo that has come up to the door, and if he knew about it, he didn't share that with Jules. So at this point, she's rather confused about what happened to Solo. She's more or less done with what she promised to do. She's restored the pump and it's working away, but Solo is the only one that knows where her suit is, and she's desperate to get the suit. So that's the end of the episode. A very good one in my opinion. You continue to see things deteriorating in 18, and we are sitting here knowing what potentially is going to happen to 18 because we saw it happen in 17. That somebody stupidly opens the doors and the atmosphere gets in and kills everybody, or anybody that goes out into the atmosphere dies. Some quicker, some slower. And then now we see that Jules has done what she's promised, turn on the pump, which uh, has some consequences in Silo 17, in that it could go dry again and give her access to more and more of that silo. And finally, we have the question of um, are Solo and Jules the only one in 17? And that, I think, is what we'll find out next week when episode 8 drops. Um, Not a huge number of episodes left, but I'm really enjoying the show. It shows you what happens when you have good people putting on good products. I know some people don't like this show. Fuck you. No, sorry. Um, it's, everybody's got their own opinion, but um, yeah, I'm again very pleased with how the show is being carried out, and enjoy and look forward to each episode. So that's my thoughts on this this episode. Thanks.